And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the End the Session podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. LaCrystal Wilson Johnson from CSA, that is our Counseling and Accessibility Services on campus. And she's going to be telling us her roles, telling us what she does, and how the CSA be here. So, Dr. Johnson, take it away.
Okay, perfect. Well, I am super excited to be here. First, let me start off by saying that. But in the Counseling and Accessibility Services Department, we often refer to it as CAS. Our role is to support the students through like personal things, academics, emotional issues. So we do free mental health counseling for students in person and virtual. And so a lot of students come to us for many different reasons because we deal with students transitioning right outside of high school, but then also some non-traditional students. And then we also facilitate the process for accommodation. So students with a disability, many types of disabilities. And I think we'll probably get into that a little bit later, but students with a diagnosed disability, they can come through our process to receive academic accommodations.
Right. Okay, so to start off, I mean, as we talked about on this podcast before, BRCC is a bit unique when it comes to the students that we get as compared to your regular four-year university that gets more standard students. You may get four-year universities will get students that are out of high school. BRCC, we get students out of high school, students who are maybe working full-time, another job, stuff like that. They got life going on. How do you feel you all fit into that with considering we get such unique students that come from all different walks of life?
I think as a counselor, though, you are prepared to deal with a variety of dynamics and cultures and different things like that. And so it's not that it's different. You know, if we were doing this outpatient, you would probably be meeting with the same type of individuals. So, and even though the dynamic is different, some of the problems are still the same. So
Right.
Meeting with an 18-year-old who's struggling with transitions, if I meet with someone who is in the 40s or 50s, they are also probably dealing with transition difficulties because they probably sat out a while and then they're transitioning back. And so even though the problems aren't exactly the same, there are some similarities. So I don't think we have to treat it differently if we were in another setting or whatnot. And like I said, you can still like make that connection even though there's an age gap.
Right.
Why CSA?
Why?
CAS.
Well, CAS.
CAS.
Yeah.
So why do I want to be a part of
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
I think I love this dynamic. First of all, we don't necessarily deal with super severe issues, so it makes it a little bit more manageable in the realm of things and the time of things. But I really like dealing with like empowerment, transition stuff, and advocacy. So obviously with our accommodating, or not obviously, but with our accommodation students, we have to get an advocate for them sometimes.
Right.
Some of them, even though we encourage them, like, hey, you go speak with your instructor first, and if you have a problem, then we'll step in. But we are there to advocate on their behalf. And then just the dynamic. I think I don't know how other CAS departments are, but I think we just have a really good one. I think we're structured really well, organized, have some great resources in the department. So yeah, it's a great team and some cool people in our area to work with.
Y'all got a whole new remodel.
I saw that.
SGA used to be there, and then I looked, council services then moved on up.
Them offices look nice too. I be seeing her walk past and like, oh, they look nice.
Y'all gotta come in and check out what we have to offer.
I'm gonna have, after this, I'm probably gonna have to go.
Well, y'all might see me for finals week.
Yeah. Some people who consistently come in and take advantage of the PI or our meditation room all the time, every week, every day. Have an instructor comes every day.
Okay. Ooh. Yes, I always say all the time, I could never respect all the teachers. I couldn't do that. Respect to all of them because they're doing a service, but I couldn't do that.
Kudos to every CAS worker out there. That's a stressful job.
It can be, and the same thing that we tell the students, we have to also do those things. So, you know, a lot of the time when I'm working with them, I tell them, I know it's easier said than done, because I live in it. I had to do these same things, but it's really just one step at a time. And especially here, hearing all these different stories and issues, you have to make sure that you have that balance.
All right. Well, since we've talked about this, let's get one thing straight: is how does someone get in contact with you to make sure that they can get involved in all this and get the help they need?
Yeah. So a lot of our students are walking by and they're seeing. So I don't know if y'all seen had like some new lettering on the.
Yeah.
It's really big. They're able to see that. So just walking by, we get people to come in and ask questions about the services we offer. But we have information on our website. So ibrcc.edu, a current students tab, accessibility services, our counseling services. And so a student who wants to receive counseling services should do a consent form.
Okay.
So before they start receiving services, they have to have the consent form in place, and then we schedule their appointment. A student who needs accommodations, the process is a little bit more rigorous. You try to not make it present as a barrier, but they have to do an application for accessibility services and then submit documentation documenting that they have a disability. But we accept a lot of different things.
Right.
IEP from high school, IEP 504 plan, a psychological evaluation, something from a psychiatrist or any type of medical or mental health professional. We accept that. But yeah, they just need to do the application, submit documentation, and then we do an intake appointment to discuss what accommodations they will be approved for.
Okay. Got you.
It's a question for you. What would you like to tell students who may not know they need help, but when I feel like they're comfortable seeking?
Yeah, and that happens often where we have a student group, and I'll go from both, I guess. So we had students who previously had accommodations in high school, and it's a little bit different because the parents and these new counselors are more involved, so they don't have to do a lot of the work, right? And so then when they're transitioning here and it's on the student to, hey, you have to provide the instructor with the accommodation, he has to do these things. So then they're just like, I don't know if I need it. I don't really, want to do it. So with that, we still encourage them, like, you may not need it. Still go through the process so that it's available and you decide to use it.
Right.
And then a lot of that, like with counseling and just different things, it's about, I think, building that rapport. Most people, I don't want to say most, but a lot of people feel uncomfortable about therapy. There's still this stigma related to mental health, right? And so they're like, I don't know. But I think some of it has to do with me and how it's presented. And I always tell them, like, you can't really base a therapy session on what you see on TV. And therapist styles are different. Like me and Dr. Diggs, our styles are different. And so not saying that either one is wrong. You just, got to find your fit. That's one thing. But yeah, we try to talk to them, let them feel like it's a safe space, confidential to an extent, because there are limits to confidentiality.
Right.
But yeah, we try to make it as supportive and safe as we can. And so I had a student, I think it was last week or the week before, and I don't think she was really interested in talking. So I was like, hey, like, come check out our meditation room. You can come sit in here if you don't necessarily want to speak to anybody, or you can use our pod. So I think just trying to offer alternatives if it's not something that they want to do, or just constantly letting them know, like, hey, you are available when you're ready, because that's another thing. Sometimes we get referrals and a student is just like, I don't mind, I'm going to decline services if we're calling to check in to see if they're interested. So it just depends. But I think just that rapport building and trying to build that trust in that relationship with them really helps a student who is uncomfortable or unsure if it's a right fit or if it's something that they want to do.
So you mentioned the meditation room a couple times. What can you give me like explanation, like what goes on in the meditation room? Is it like you have a meditation pod? Okay, so explain that for me.
Yeah, so we kind of have two. So it's kind of like a wellness pod or meditation pod. So with that, it's like this big thing in the corner of our main area, and you can sit in it. You can do a meditate. So you just review what's on the screen to see like what type of service you want to do.
Oh, wow.
You do like meditation, morning encouragement, affirmations, just different, guided imagery and scenes. And so you sit in it. It's about 15 minutes, but for some of them, you can change the scent. So if I'm like in the forest or something, you can smell pine trees or
Ooh,
something.
okay.
Yeah, it comes with heated. The seats are heated. It has like a little fan. It's fancy, I tell you.
I was gonna recommend y'all go check it out, but I might be in there, so maybe don't check
Really
it.
nice. So right now we don't have to do appointments for either option because it's it's not booked up. But later, I'm hoping it gets to the point where people are using it more consistently. And so we have the pie, but we also have this meditation room. It comes with like colored lights. So if you want to feel a sense of calmness, we might put the blue lights on.
Okay.
We have some surrounding, and so we connect to YouTube and play like some meditation music. We have like this little beanbag sofa looking thing that you can kind of lay back and relax on. We have this greenery wall, and on it it says relax. I want to say, can you relax or just breathe? So just some really cool things in there that students sit there feeling overwhelmed and they don't want to necessarily talk to somebody, but they need a moment because they can go sit in there, chill out for a minute, and then go.
Okay. Now, is that like so I know you said you don't have appointments for it yet, but is there like a time limit that you can stay in there? Because I imagine you can't just camp out in there.
Mm-hmm. So typically, I mean, we're saying about 15 minutes, but of course, if we don't have anybody waiting to use it,
Right.
we're open to allowing them to stay longer. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What is the most difficult part about the job?
The most typical part. So I'll give two answers, I guess. So one is feeling that a client has the potential, you see the potential, and then them not willing or capable or able to do the work to be better, and so yeah, you really just got to meet them where they are. And so, but that's hard because I'm like, I know you can do this, but it is a struggle. And then I think the second part would be just sometimes hearing the stories or the trauma and different things like that. And so that's why I support like I said earlier, just to make sure you're using self-care and taking care of yourselves because it can feel overwhelming. I remember when I first started as a new counselor, I used to like work late, bring issues home with me. It just got exhausting. And I think that's why a lot of counselors burn out because they don't have that work-life balance. But now I'm like, okay, it's 5 o'clock. I'm gonna have to catch up with this later. Because I just can't bring it home and focus on it. So try to help them, but and I always tell them like your success, a little percentage of what we do in therapy contributes to that. Because if we're meeting one time a week, we have a ton of other hours outside of that. So you have to make sure that you're applying the things that we're talking about, so say those things.
I think that's really important considering. So like my view on therapy before I actually began going to therapy was like, oh, I'm going to talk to this person and they're going to fix all my problems. It's not how it works. They give you, because as you said, you only talking with that person maybe for an hour, sometimes a week, sometimes once every other week. How often, it depends by person. And then they're supposed to give you the tools to kind of, help you tackle life. And that way you can break down your problems and build you to a point maybe where you don't need to come for therapy anymore.
And I think you made a good point that sometimes people think that, hey, I'm going to go to therapy, they're going to fix my problem. And that's it. I cannot fix your problem. I don't have control over those circumstances. And so I have to reiterate, like I remember being in a session, a client asking a question, and I kind of put it back on them, like, what are your thoughts about that? What do you think? And so she asked the question again. And so we kind of talked about it. And so then she mentioned, like, I thought you would give me the answer. And so I'm just like, no, I can support you, but I can't. I think it's a liability thing. First of all, if let's say if a student is talking about a relationship, I know that it's traumatic and it's not healthy. I can't tell this student to, hey, like you go break up with that person. Then later she breaks up, something bad happens or whatever the case is, for them to then be like, oh, well, my therapist told me to do this. So no, I'm going to help guide you to a solution, or we could discuss options and things. But no, a therapist's role is to never give advice and, fix it in that way.
When I started therapy, I had told my closest friends this, a couple nights ago. They're like, I had started therapy. Was like, you're one of the most people who seems like it's all together on the outside. you can say it could be one thing, but on that inside, there's totally different ball beat. Just telling them, what I'm all going through, being at LSU is a different ball game than being at BRCC. Yeah. It's a BRCC, it's a wonderful environment, more calm, lackadaisical environment. But when I went to LSU, that last semester and starting this spring, it's pizza. And that can get overwhelming. And then, to your point, obviously, the doctor just said, my therapist never gives me the answer. She gives me the tools that I use to get that answer. So if you're feeling this, well, what are some safety boundaries that you click? What are some things that are ingredients? It's not, I suggest everybody do therapy. It's not for everybody, but they're there to if you need somebody to talk to, they're there.
Right.
I said take full advantage of counseling, just speaking to someone in that type of environment. If you're in school, it can get difficult.
Especially a place like BRC, like I said earlier, people got life going on. I mean, it's not just here, but everywhere. Life be happening, and sometimes you just need an outside source to talk to. You can't. Sometimes people be busy. You can't always call somebody, so reach out.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off of what you said, just providing a psychoeducation. So if a student's talking to me about relationship issues, is an unhealthy dynamic, then I might give some psychoeducation about, hey, like, let's talk about the characteristics of a healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the characteristics of an unhealthy relationship, so that this is what's the word I'm looking for? Like research and evidence-based things, so they can say, okay, now I see it, not just coming from me, right? And then with the therapy, I think it's important to tell people that, like, you have to find your fit. I know there was a period when I did therapy for grief. And so I probably fired 3 or 4 therapists. It just wasn't, they just weren't a fit and kind of meeting me where I was. Mm-hmm. One of them wanted to talk about not sleeping. One of them talked about herself a lot. And so I think that kind of steers people away and gives them this feeling about their business. They just give up. But really, and then I found somebody who was really great. And so I think it's just, you have to find your fit. Everybody won't be a good fit. And so I always tell them, if you're ready to do therapy, like, interview a few. They do free consultations, so take advantage of that. I know BRCC is a little bit different because we're limited to the people, but if you're doing outpatient stuff, then I would say, like, interview those potential therapists and talk about the services that you need. Ask them to talk about their style and all those needs, so that you can figure out what works. And even after that, if you start seeing somebody and it's not a good fit, have that conversation. They may be willing to change their style to fit your needs, but if not, you can always, reach out to somebody else.
Now, was therapy, this particular degree, was this your first choice of the year to college?
No, actually, I went to Xavier, majored in biology and chemistry. I wanted to be a pediatrician. And I was really all about it. I tell you, I wanted to be a pediatrician. And so I soon found my I don't know if I really want to do this. So I transferred to Southern. My major was still biology and chemistry, but I took a psychology elective. Dr. Q. Ryan taught it. Still remember her. And I fell in love with it. And so I was like, okay, I think I'm going to change my major to psychology. So my undergrad is in psychology. But I think apart from that, a lot of counselors, it's personal. Going into this career is personal. So I have a family history of mental health issues. And so I think that also helps me understand and I deal with anxiety as well. So I think it just helps deal with things a little bit better. And then also me being able to use the skills and tools that I've learned for myself.
That's good, especially hearing that you originally didn't choose this path. We talk about it all the time that you don't always have to have it exactly figured out once you get to college, and most people actually don't. But you gotta get there at some point, and it's a journey that we all go through to figure out what we're gonna do after school.
So, if a student has, mental challenges, like we can have a couple students, he has some programs on campus and deal with, the mentally challenged students. How does CSA come interact with that like with the other departments, making sure students do have these awareness and things. Like say if a student has dyslexia really bad. So what is the process of what are the steps that we will have to take to make sure the professors know and the parents know how does that kind of play out?
Well, technically, since they're an adult, the parents aren't really involved. Same with the instructors. So once the student is, they go through our accommodation process, like I mentioned. The student is responsible for providing that accommodation letter to the instructor. So if a student has 5 classes, they can use it for all 5 classes. They can say, "Hey, I'm only sending it to 2 of my instructors. I don't want the other 2 to know. I don't think I'll need it for those courses." They're just responsible for providing the instructor with a copy of it. Instructor can't ask a diagnosis. We don't share diagnosis. We tell the students. So, for example, if a student has consideration for absences, we tell them, like, you could tell the instructor as much or as little if you would like, because consideration, right? And so it's really up to the student as to how much information they're willing to share about their diagnosis and issues. And what's the second part of the question? And also with dyslexia, so we don't do testing, or if we have a student who comes in and they're like, "I don't have a formal diagnosis from anybody, I think that I have these issues," then we do have like some referrals that we could give them so that they could reach out to an outpatient provider to possibly receive testing, because we have to have documentation. So
Right.
we try to connect them with different resources. So even if a student comes in for their accommodation appointment and sometimes they mention that they have issues with Candace, or they don't have the study skills, or they don't, X, Y, and Z. We try to connect them with different. We always send a lot of people to the digital learning academic support.
We get them. We get them.
It's on our email that we send to them that includes their letter. Like, please utilize those resources. If we have a student who comes in, it's not related to accommodations, but they're saying like, "Hey, I want to build up my social skills. I want to get more involved." We're going to connect them with SGA. If we have a student who is struggling financially, I know sometimes, and I don't know if it's still current, but previously, like the foundation has some type of process. If the student met whatever requirements that they had that they equal to that,
Right.
we will refer them to that office. If we have a student who has experienced Title IX issues, we would send them to the Title IX office. So it just depends on, like, if it's something that we can't necessarily deal with in our office, you try to connect into the appropriate resources, whether it's on campus or off campus.
Okay. I mean, I find it's good. It's always good to have systems in place that way, because when I first started going to school, I have ADHD. So my big issue was I didn't want to like just divulge with everyone. Look, this is what I got going on, this, that, and the third. I can't do this, can't do that. But it's always good to be able to, like, I can't share all of what I can do, but I can, maybe I just need just a little more time with this test, and stuff like that. So I find it very helpful that there are systems in place, and we do appreciate the students y'all send over here, because, we always appreciate any traffic that comes our way.
Yeah, and with the clients who are unsure if they want to use the accommodations, we always use. I don't know if you guys ever saw this picture where it's the dad and he's tall and he's able to look
Yeah.
at the fence. And
Okay.
whatever, with the kids and they're much shorter. And so we try to level the playing field. And
Right.
so then they give the kids boxes to stand on. And so we're not asking them to do anything out of the ordinary. We just want them to, within reason, provide the, whatever accommodations that they qualify for based on their diagnosis, so that they can be, successful.
Right. My other question is, since we get students who are coming out of high school, and you touched on the point that, since mom and dad is not there, students often rely on, I used to have my parents do this for me, do that for me. How do you kind of tackle that? Because I imagine getting past that, I used to have my mom set my appointments for me, now I got to set my appointments for me. How do you kind of tackle that challenge?
So the parents a lot of the time still come to the appointments.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yes, still they come to the appointments, and that's okay. We allow that, but we also speak directly to the student. And so even though the mom is in here, or whoever is in here, I'm speaking to the student about the services. I'm giving them that information. At the end, I do ask, whoever's involved, if they have any additional information but I try to still make sure that it's student centered because we understand that the child may have needed that support in high school, but we are also transitioning them and want to empower them to be more independent. And so we work with the parent, but we are still directly talking to the student. And so we tell them too, like, those are some issues that can be handled in counseling if you have anxiety about transition and so yeah, but I mean, we try to work with the parents as well, but we'll have a parent who may call and we don't have a FERPA on file, so we'll tell them, I can't give you that information. And sometimes they're fine with it, and sometimes it's a problem.
Right.
Just gotta follow the process.
Got you.
Have you ever had to deal with a student that was extremely unmotivated? Like, it's difficult when you're at work, because like you said, you see the opportunity that they have. Have you ever had to deal with that, and how was that make you feel? Does that let you down when you see them not going to give themselves more effort?
So I don't think it lets me down because I try not to personalize things, and that's their stuff. So I know my role, and I'm willing to just support them where they are and meet them where they are. But then we talk about different things like, okay, this is like a short-term thing. Like, tell me about your motivation in the past and how the things that you did, how were they helpful? And is it possible to implement those things again? And I also tell them too, like, I think sometimes we ask for things like, oh, I want to be in a happy mood, but what is that? And it won't magically change. Like, if you don't have the motivation, it's just, you can't wait on just something to magically happen. So it's going to take a lot of effort. So even if you don't want to do those things, sometimes you got to force yourself to do it. And it may be unpleasant, but I think it's getting into a routine of consistency. So if I'm not motivated, obviously my classes are probably impacted. And so we might need to work on time management and creating a schedule and work on procrastination so that you can start moving, beyond that. But yeah, I mean, and then sometimes too, we have students who are not motivated because they're depressed, and it's like a mental health issue. So if me have talked a lot and, I gave them some insightful education on coping skills and they've actively implemented the coping skills, sometimes like this just isn't enough. And so we may have to consider other options, connecting them with an outpatient provider, psychiatrist, or something, if that's something that you're interested in, to see if it's just that chemical imbalance and then be just some cushion, maybe temporarily, to help with it.
Right. I like how you spoke on kind of giving skills, like we talked about earlier, just giving you the tools to kind of succeed. For me personally, I used to have trouble with like test taking anxiety, and so part of my journey of therapy was figuring out how to be more successful in school. And so my original problem was for me personally, I thought I suck at taking tests. It wasn't that. It was I suck at studying for my test. And I had to learn how to study for myself so I had to figure out how I learned. That way I could figure out, okay, this is how I can prepare for my test. Because I wasn't bad at taking tests. I went in feeling unprepared, which caused anxiety and caused the whole system to fall apart.
I think that's good because people learn material in different ways.
Right.
In class, it's the way of the instructor, however they're going to teach the class. So that's something we talk about them too. Like for me, if I'm writing something often, that's repetitive. And so that helps me. But I also tell them, like, we listen to music and we learn songs like this. So I remember I used to like record my information and play it back and listen to it, on the drive or whatnot. So just trying to figure out, like, if the note cards work best and just constantly writing, it works best. If listening to it works best, so just trying to figure that out. Because, yeah, some people don't know. They just kind of do the standard, but it just not be working for them and trying to figure out. Because there are other options.
What works for everybody may not work for you because it didn't work for me. So I understand.
Once she does not feel. I've had some classes where it's like, oh, I could just study how my friends study. And I didn't class the test because I didn't study how I would study. I like to use from Canvas to ChatGPT. I use every resource that I have, make a practice exam, make practice questions just to get that material, hold that material in. So I can learn better. So it's that constant reinforcement. Like I said earlier, it's that reinforcement. You're a young adult. You gotta figure it out yourself. I'm gonna give you the tools, equipment, excuse me, that you need to get that overall satisfaction.
And realizing that the thing they did for the students transitioning out of high school, that it's not the same. You know, some students can get away with not studying and doing all of those things, but when you transition, because I heard that hey, I didn't study in high school, now I have to
Yep.
figure out a plan and what to do. And so it's just that transition process. So I try to normalize. It feels like you're not the only one who's been here, who's had a difficult time transitioning. And it's a process. So just kind of work different things to see what's your fit. And then again, like what may be good for one class still may not be good for the other. So willing to just not put yourself in this box and be flexible, and willing to figure it out.
Like when I took calculus, you know, that was easy because I had everything. I knew exactly what I was doing. I just had took algebra the year and a half prior to that. But when I took statistics too, I'm like, whoa, this is not what I signed up.
And just because it's math don't mean you gotta study for it differently. Yeah.
Different types of math.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I took statistics in school, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't ever want to have to do it again. So when I did my research, my dissertation, it was not qualitative.
Got you. So one other thing is that do you often find with students, because I mean we've talked about this before, where we live in an age where like a lot of people are on social media and they see a lot of people, you know, building success, you know, but you don't often see the work they put behind that. Do you see students who like come in and like, I see everybody getting A's, I see people getting this, I see people getting that, I'm not getting these A's. Am I the problem? Or like, you know, how do you work with students who kind of have that, they see the world through like, you know, through the lens of social media and then not really getting the reality of it?
So, I mean, I had my client this morning, actually, we talked a little bit about that. Not so much about social media, but comparing herself to the path of her friends, and the path that they should took. And I told her, that's you, and you got to put simply, you have to stop comparing yourself to other people, because each person's journey is different. You know, who knows what circumstances this person had. So a person who maybe reached a goal really quick, they may not have had any like significant life stressors or events that prevented them from, you know, being able to do a straight shot. But for many people, it's like wobbly, you know, you're having to turn all these different angles or whatnot. But I think it's related to self-esteem and just not comparing yourself. And I tell them, a lot of what you see on social media is not like
Right.
you see things that are really good. I mean, I think now people are starting to share things that are not so good to be honorable or whatnot. But a lot of the times, the things that we see, we don't know if it's factual or, you know, or not. So yeah, just having that conversation, like your path is different and it's okay, you know. So maybe your goals and expectations were different for yourself, but you still have time to figure it out. But don't, you know, I also encourage them, like, don't wait too long. Like, you don't want to say 5 years down the line, I'm still trying to
Right.
figure out, like, you have to actively be doing something different. Like, if you know, if you're unsure about like your career path, and whatnot, like try something and see if this is something that you want to do. And then if not, you know, make a swap. But yeah, you don't want to keep swapping around and just kind of staying in this great area of uncertainty. And I think fear also keeps us stuck in that box, but you can't allow fear to keep us there, you know?
You spoke about work-life balance. See, you're a former college student yourself.
Yeah.
So what were some of the tips and tricks that you used that helped with that work-life balance as well?
So I think I'm a very structured and organized person. And
She's to the point, right there.
Yeah.
I kid you not. Anytime I can see in the office, a Mac, hands down.
because I know I'm going to be anxious if not. So that's another,
Okay.
like knowing where your triggers are. So if you deal with anxiety, what things cause you anxiety? How can you put something in place so that you won't make yourself anxious, right? And so I use calendars. I try to do stuff ahead of time because things happen. So if we're waiting to the last minute and then something really important comes up and I got to make a shift, then my stuff isn't able to get done. And so try to work in advance. I try to take breaks if I'm working on something that takes a long period of time. Sometimes I just get brain fog. And so making sure that I'm not sitting down for 5 hours straight, that I'm going, get up and take a break, clear my mind, you know, de-stress, do some grounding exercise, breathe, and whatever the case is, and then go back to it.
Right.
And I think that happens a lot with students studying. Like they say, hey, this is my day committed to studying. I'm doing it for 5-6 hours. For me, when I was at school, I wasn't retaining that information because I was just trying to cram it. And so making sure that you're doing it piece by piece. And then maybe there is a day that you do a comprehensive study, but that you need to break it down that you're doing that. But yeah, having a schedule, still making sure that I'm making time for social relationships and family and things. But I know there were also some times where I had to set a boundary and say, no, I can't do something because I've had something else that was more of a priority. So that's enough, trying to figure out what you need to prioritize. And sometimes if you want to go hang out with friends and have a good time and you have work to do, you got to say no because, make school or that school may be the priority.
Right. I used to watch this guy on YouTube who he's a doctor, and while he was studying in med school, one of the things he said is sometimes you need that reward that you lock in a little bit. So what he would do is he would take a 2-hour block where he would study, and that's all he would do for the day. That's it. And he passed med school with flying colors, because after that, if he locked in a 2-hour block, he got to go do whatever he had to go do for the rest of the day. But that's because it was the first thing he did. He locked in and got it done.
And that's another thing. Sorry. It is understanding that your study habits can affect your individual as well. If you have very core study habits, then when finals or midterms come, you're going to be extremely stressed out. I don't know if I'm going to get this grade. Well, what are your study habits? If your study habits are poor, your grades are going to show. And then you're going to see that trouble effect, or you feel burned out. I don't want to go to class anymore. I'm tired. I don't want to be here. It's the small things that need to difference. For me, I had to spend a day and a half on certain subjects. Like operations management, I took 2 days out to read that and no other class. Because it was such a context-heavy course that it needed to areas. Unlike, say, stats, I could go on YouTube to help me watch breakdown videos on how to do the forwards or organization with game theory. It's different. It's true for different folks when it comes to your education, and it helps, and it ties up with your mental health as well.
And I think just really taking the time too, because I have some students who come and say, I don't have the time. And I'm like, okay, let's create a calendar right here. You tell me what you're doing,
right?
So that I'm sure there are some times
it's somewhere in there
that you get, whether it's that you need to put in homework or that you need to put in self-care. I have some clients who come to say, hey, I don't have time for self-care. You got to make time,
right?
So, and it doesn't have to be like this big extravagant thing. I'm not telling you to go get a massage all the time. There may be a 15 minutes where you like lock your door, you go take a bubble bath, you do something. You may go, outside for a walk. It doesn't have to be anything long, but just trying to find just like small areas and things that you could do to help just kind of clear your mind for a moment,
Often I find that if you don't take time for self-care, it's going to come back in some sort of way. Yeah. Either you're gonna take it now and do whatever you got to do, bubble bath, take a walk, go to the gym, whatever it is you choose to do, or something's gonna happen, and then you're gonna be forced to take that little break. It might be a longer break than if you just took the 15 minutes.
Right. Yeah. You know what? Another thing that I always use too, because I like just like imagery and visuals or whatnot. But when you're on an airplane, they tell you to secure your oxygen mask or you can reduce pneumodiosis. So if your gas tank is on E, you have nothing to pour out, of course, pneumodiosis. So just making sure that you're doing the things that you need to do to fill your gas tank, make sure that you're securing your oxygen mask before you're accepting all these responsibilities and things from other people to have that balance.
This woman,
indeed,
she is like top tier. I'm enjoying everything. Y'all, when we're done recording, I'm going over there later to go check out that farm.
Y'all gonna see me in meditation room. Y'all gonna see me in there. Speaking of that, what positive effects do you see when it comes if someone comes to speak to someone like you? Like what positive effects? Let's say if I come in there, what can I expect to get?
Yeah, just from the initial or just like the end.
Just like over time, because as we discussed, you can't just from talking to you one time. I'm probably not. It's not gonna fix everything. It's a process I gotta go through.
Yeah, you know what? I think so. Sometimes, to be honest, like I had a session and I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like that was a good session, but the client tells me like, hey, like that was really helpful, and so just like, even though I may not be feeling my best, but them telling me like, hey, like you're doing this is good. always helps me. But what I'm really most excited about is when I have a client who comes and they're like, I did X, Y, and Z. We talked about this. I was able to do it. And so that they're actually following through and that they see the growth. I always tell, like, 3 months from now, 2 months from now, we're going to look back and you'll be able to tell. Like, in the moment, it's sometimes hard, right, to see the progress that you made. But when you look at the bigger picture, 3 months from now, you're like, okay, I was able to set that boundary. I communicated a little bit better. I was able to do X, Y, and Z. And so just kind of seeing their progress and then seeing their excitement about it, because sometimes they come in and they just don't feel like they're confident or they don't feel like they're able to reach the goals. But yeah, so I love self-esteem stuff. I love like motivating and empowering our clients. And in a compassionate way, from old mentor that I had, like she could tell a person some bad news, anything in a very nice and sweet way and empathetic, and the person took it, and I was like, okay, this is what I gotta learn.
That's a talent. That's a talent right there. Ooh, that's a.
Think of that when I'm trying to have a conversation. If I have a client comes in and they're suicidal and they're not willing to allow me to contact any support or, just like my hands are tied, there's nothing that I could do.
Right.
So that's what I tell, I really want to support you. And I will really be doing you a disservice if I don't take the base step. So I know you don't want to go to the hospital. I know it's uncomfortable, but this is what, I have to do for you. So just kind of talking to them in a way where you're not like judging them or pushing or, and then sometimes giving options too. So not necessarily for that. I could probably give an option, but for other things too, like giving 2 options. So then they feel like they are in control. And so I think that kind of helps the situation too, so that they have like, I'm not saying, hey, do this.
Right.
So I think it's just different ways, but you want to make sure that they feel heard and seen and supported, and it's not this environment where they feel judged. And so that's what, a lot of people say, like, hey, I want to come to counseling because I want to meet with somebody that's, not biased, they're not connected to the situation, that can give me some insight and feedback,
Right.
You think community plays a big part in it? How's it for you?
Community?
Yes.
Just in terms of my community here or community Joe
Community in general.
plays a big part for me.
Yes.
I would say so. I think there's a lot of work to be done. And so, and for me, like I said, I have a family history of it, so it's really personal. Like, so when we're talking about like suicide awareness, suicide prevention, and different things like that, because I think when we think about situations like that, people feel like that's their only out. So they're not thinking rational. It's just like a heavy place to be. And so really want to give folks the skills and the tools and connect them with resources so that they don't feel alone. But yeah, I think community helps. And then also like who you're surrounding yourself with, so as a counselor and as a client. So making sure that you're not with people who are always negative. They say like, sometimes people have 2 sets of friends, like this friend who's going to be like, okay, I'm with you. That person was wrong, blah, blah, blah. But the other person who's going to be more calm and rational, and then also willing to call you out on some stuff. So making sure that you have a friend that's willing to call you out, but also willing to support you. Because I don't want friends that's always going to tell me like the other people are wrong. Like tell me if I'm wrong and if I stepped out of line. But I think who you surround yourself with, your community, you want, what I've heard they say like, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Like I always want to be connected with people who I can learn from, so just making sure that you have healthy, good relationships. Because I think that plays a part in your mental health. So.
It's a good saying I learned from a mentor of mine is, if the shoe fits, grow. And then another one is like, look, if you want to know if you want me to tell you your future, show me your 5 closest friends. I could probably tell you where you end up from there. And that's what he used to tell me.
Show me your first track. You should be.
Yeah, there you go.
Look, in your opinion, what are some positive changes you see within CSA? CSA. Yes. I can't get the Fits you first, Joy.
Oh, I think we've advanced, man, for sure. I don't know of any other counseling and accessibility services that have some of the resources that we have. Like we have this big, wellness side, a meditation room, like some advanced things. We have two licensed professional counselors with doctoral degrees.
Amen.
We have some good interns that we work with as well. So our fee is just, and then we have good system and structure. And so I think just the setup, the routine, the dynamic, going back to community in the workplace, like just having a good vibe for the people that you work with too, because since we deal with such touchy things, you also want to make sure that the people you're surrounded with here can also, help you. So if I'm having a tough client, I'm gonna go to Dr. Deeks and we're gonna consult on it and vice versa. So just making sure that having that good community. But yeah, I think we have some great resources and things. So yeah, it's really advanced.
I love that because I mean, yeah, y'all have fantastic resources. Like we said, y'all have a whole new office set up over there. But I just on campus, just in general, coming at least especially since I traditionally transferred over to LSU, they don't have it over LSU. They're that it's not as built. And I really appreciate that because y'all have really nice facilities. I'm about to go sit in that meditation room. I'm gonna use it, y'all. I'm telling you. Y'all, yeah. Y'all gonna see a YouTube short of me and Vaughn in that meditation room. Y'all gonna see it.
Is there one thing you would like for students to take away from this?
I would like them to take away that there are resources available, that I encourage them to utilize them or just come get some information about it. So come stop by, get to know the staff, see what services we're offering. And they may not decide to use it, but that they're aware of it. But that they're not alone. So if a person is struggling with mental health issues, another person has been there and also been able to move beyond that. So, that they're not alone. There are resources to take advantage of, get some information. We're here to support you. And you can see just all the great things the department has to offer.
And I don't know if we said it before, but where exactly on campus can we find you? Yes.
We are located in the Bienvenue Student Center, Suite 142. It's next to the Versus office. So it's the old SGA suite. We're located there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for Dr. LaCrystal Wilson Johnson for coming on the show. We had wonderful insight, wonderful information. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to our YouTube.
And go find a meditation room. That's what I'm going to be after this. That's where I'm going to be, y'all.
We're going to go check out.
Yeah, that's where I'm going to be.